Cancun was supposed to be the reset button. The warm sun, the gentle Caribbean waves, the scent of tropical flowers in the air. It was the dream vacation we'd been talking about for months. After 2 years together, grinding it out in Austin, Sarah and I had finally decided to ditch the tech bro hustle and the endless brunch scene for some actual romance. But, as it often goes, the brochure leaves out the fine print. Sarah was practically buzzing when we boarded the flight, almost uncomfortably so. She was glowing, her laughter echoing through the cabin, as if she'd just closed a massive deal. I chalked it up to vacation excitement. She'd been dreaming about white sand beaches and turquoise water for as long as I'd known her. But even then, a small, nagging feeling started to creep in. Sarah, who was usually an open book, was glued to her iPhone. Every time I'd lean over to see what was so captivating, she'd angle the screen away with a lazy smile and murmur, "Just work stuff, babe. Do not worry about it." For the first couple of days, I pushed it aside. We fell into a blissful routine. Long walks on the beach, dinners at local spots, and taking cheesy photos by every palm tree. But Sarah remained distant, and that phone never left her hand. On day 3, after a breakfast of fresh fruit and coffee on our ocean view terrace, Sarah made the announcement. "Hey, I was thinking of hitting those little shops down the strip. Need to pick up a few things. Wanna come?" I looked at her over the rim of my glass of orange juice. She was way too put together for a casual stroll through souvenir shacks. Her sundress, one I knew she loved, hugged her perfectly. Her makeup was flawless, and she was wearing a pair of delicate hairpins she usually saved for nice dinners out. Felt off, but the lounge chair was comfortable and I was feeling lazy. "Nah, you go ahead," I said, stretching out. "I'm just gonna chill here. Grab me a beer koozie or something." She smiled, but it did not quite reach her eyes. It was a strange, almost artificial expression. And for a split second, I saw something else flicker across her face. Relief? Joy? She turned and walked away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume in her wake. A few minutes later, sipping a margarita and listening to the waves crash, the nagging feeling grew into a full-blown alarm. I am not a jealous guy, but my gut was screaming that something was wrong. Maybe it was her detached gaze, or the way she'd been guarding her phone like it was a state secret. I tried to dismiss the thoughts, but they kept coming back, stronger each time. Finally, I could not take it anymore. "Screw this," I muttered to myself, pushing myself up from the lounger. "I'm gonna go see what's so interesting at these shops." I walked slowly in the direction she'd gone, a knot tightening in my stomach with every step. I scanned past the storefronts with their colorful dresses and cheap jewelry, my eyes darting across every cafe patio. And then I saw her. Sarah was sitting at a small, round table. She was not alone. Across from her sat a man, tall, with a confident posture, dressed in a casual but expensive-looking linen shirt. He was leaning in close, and they were laughing, lost in their own world. When I got a better look, my blood ran cold. It was Ryan, her ex, the same Ryan she'd occasionally mention with a hint of sadness, always assuring me it was long over. Felt like a physical blow. This was not some friendly catch-up. Their body language, their easy intimacy, it was all there. Sarah tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, leaning forward as she spoke. He laughed, and his hand briefly covered hers on the table. I ducked back behind a pillar, my head pounding. I was furious, but I knew I could not just storm over there. Not without a game plan. I pulled out my iPhone. I need proof, I thought, my hands surprisingly steady as I zoomed in and snapped a dozen pictures. Sarah and Ryan were so absorbed in each other they did not notice a thing. "So that's what you've been hiding," I whispered, sliding the phone back into my pocket. They did not stay long. After a few minutes, Ryan stood up and gestured for her to come with him. Sarah nodded, grabbing her purse. She moved with a quick, fluid motion, like someone rushing off to something important. I followed them, keeping my distance. They crossed the street and entered a small, shaded park. The canopy of trees offered a break from the oppressive heat, but I did not feel it. I was burning from the inside out. They stopped in a secluded spot. I hid behind a large tree, peering around the edge. Ryan was talking, and Sarah was laughing that bright, carefree laugh she had not used with me all week. Then he wrapped his arms around her. It was a real hug, the kind you give someone you still care about deeply. And she let him, hugging him back just as tightly. It only lasted a few seconds, but it was long enough for me to feel something inside me shatter. I could not watch anymore. I backed away and sank onto a nearby bench, forcing myself to breathe. Not now, I repeated to myself. Making a scene here would be stupid. I needed more than just pictures. When they finally parted ways, Sarah headed back toward the hotel. I waited until she was out of sight before following. She went straight into our room and turned on the shower. The sound of running water was my cue. I walked over to her purse, which was tossed carelessly on a chair, and pulled out her phone. I knew the passcode. She typed it in front of me once without thinking. It felt like a massive violation of trust, but at that point, I did not give a damn. I had to know the truth. The screen lit up. Her photo gallery was open to the pictures we'd taken on the beach, but I was not interested in that. I swiped over to her iMessage and found what I was looking for. Ryan. They had been texting for months. It was all there. Their plans to run into each other in Cancun. Her telling him how much she missed him. His assurances that he'd never forgotten her. This vacation is the perfect cover. He'd written a few weeks back. Just tell him you going souvenir shopping. I closed my eyes, my heart hammering against my ribs. The shower was still running. I quickly took screenshots of the most damning messages and emailed them to myself. Then I placed the phone back in her purse, right where I found it. When Sarah came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a fluffy white towel, she looked serene, almost blissful. She walked over to me, smiling. The shops were great. Look what I got you. She held out a cheap, brightly colored keychain shaped like a flip-flop. I took it, my hand closing around the cool plastic. Thanks, I said, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. There was not a trace of guilt on her face. She sat on the edge of the bed, chatting about some nonsense she'd seen, but I was not listening. A cold, clear plan was already forming in my mind. Morning came too quickly. I barely slept, replaying every moment of the last few days in my head, assuring myself, you're not crazy. You have everything you need. When the first rays of sun filled the room, I was ready for the next phase of my quiet revenge. Sarah emerged from the bathroom, looking refreshed. It's our last full day, she chirped. We have to make the most of it. How about that boat trip we talked about? I managed to smile, burying the rage that was simmering just below the surface. Sounds great, but let's get some breakfast first? Down in the hotel restaurant, she was animated, laying out the day's itinerary, her hands gesturing wildly. I watched her, noting the genuine joy in her eyes, the flush in her cheeks, and I thought about what a masterful performance it all was. After breakfast, I insisted on a walk along the beach. She took my hand, her fingers warm in mine, but the touch meant nothing now. We walked along the shoreline as she stopped every few minutes to take selfies, laughing and telling me to get closer to the water. I played along, the perfect, doting boyfriend. Her phone captured images of a happy couple, memories she would cherish, but for me, they were just more evidence for the prosecution. That afternoon, we went out on the boat. The sun beat down on us, and the warm wind whipped through her hair. She sat beside me, dangling her feet over the side, talking about how beautiful the ocean was. I just nodded, offering one-word answers. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, an actor in a play I desperately wanted to end. That evening, after dinner, Sarah used her line again. I'm just gonna pop out for a bit. See if I can find a few more souvenirs. You mind? Her voice was light, casual, as if nothing in the world was wrong. I met her gaze and smiled. Of course not, go ahead. I'm pretty beat, I think I'll just stay here. Okay, I'll text you if anything, she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek. The second the door clicked shut, I moved. My suitcase was already mostly packed. I just had to throw in my toiletries. I did a final sweep of the room, making sure none of my things were left behind, nothing that could remind her of me. Looking at the now empty side of the room, a wave of relief washed over me. I walked down to the front desk and spun a quick story about a family emergency back in Austin. The concierge, trained in the art of polite indifference, processed the early checkout without a single probing question. "Have a safe trip, sir," he said with a practiced smile as I headed for the door. Night had already fallen, but the resort area was buzzing with manufactured energy. I pulled out my phone and ordered an Uber to the airport. As I sat in the back of the quiet sedan, I opened the Notes app. The last thing I did before leaving was to type out a short message, take a screenshot and send it to her. A final, digital twist of the knife to go with the note ID left on the crisp white sheets of the hotel bed. "Sarah, I know about you and Ryan. Hope the souvenir was worth it. Avi checked us out of the room. I'm on my way home. Good luck." The car merged onto the highway, and I glanced back at the sprawling, glittering resorts. The lights, the noise, it all felt alien, a world away. My mind was already back in Texas, miles away from the lies and the betrayal. At the airport, I managed to snag a seat on the next red-eye to Austin. Staring at the departures board, watching the letters scroll by, I felt the crushing weight of the last few days begin to lift. As the plane ascended, I watched the city lights shrink into a constellation below. There were no regrets, just a quiet sense of finality. But I did not know then that this ending was just the beginning of a new kind of war. My apartment was quiet. The silence I used to find empty now felt like a sanctuary. It had only been a few days since I got back from Cancun, just enough time to decompress and start putting the pieces of my life back together. I had systematically blocked Sarah on every platform imaginable. Phone number, Instagram, Facebook, Venmo. A complete digital exorcism. The peace, however, was short-lived. It started with an unexpected call from my boss, Mr. Jenkins, a man with a sharp gaze and a reputation for being tough but fair. "Alex, we need to talk," he said, his voice a tightrope walk between professional and concerned. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "We received a strange email through the corporate portal. I think it's something you need to see." My stomach dropped. Jenkins was not one for drama. When I walked into his office, he gestured for me to sit and slid a few printed pages across his polished desk. "This came in yesterday." I scanned the text. It was an anonymous email, supposedly from a concerned colleague, and it was filled with the most insane accusations. Sarah, using a burner email address, had painted me as aggressive, unstable, and emotionally abusive. The email was littered with screenshots of text conversations where I was supposedly admitting to uncontrollable anger and even making veiled threats. "This is fake," I breathed, feeling the blood rush to my head. "We figured as much," Jenkins said calmly, leaning back in his chair. "The formatting is off and frankly it does not sound like you. But HR is insisting we follow protocol here. You need to address this." I looked closer at the evidence. The screenshots were sloppy, pixelated with weird fonts and awkwardly cropped edges. In some of them, the timeline of the messages did not even make sense. She'd clearly thrown them together in a panic. "I can prove this is all BS," I said, my voice firm. Jenkins nodded. "We on your side, Alex. But you need to handle this by the book." I left his office with a cold, clear sense of purpose. I spent the rest of the day compiling my own dossier of evidence. The photos of Sarah and Ryan in Cancun, the screenshots of their actual text conversations, a picture of the note ID left in the hotel room, and even the desperate, rambling messages she tried to send me from new accounts before I blocked those too. Meanwhile, her narrative was already spreading through our social circle. My phone started blowing up. "Alex, what the hell is going on? Sarah said you just abandoned her in Mexico with no warning." Jessica, a mutual friend, practically yelled through the phone. And you accused her of cheating? Dude, seriously? Is that what this is about? David, one of her oldest friends, asked, his tone dripping with judgment. I stayed quiet. It was brutal. I did not want to air our dirty laundry, but I knew the truth was the only thing that would protect my reputation. The next day, I sent a carefully worded email to the handful of people who had reached out. I attached everything. The photos, the texts between Sarah and Ryan, and the picture of my note. The response was immediate. Alex, man, I am sorry I doubted you. David texted back a few minutes later. Jessica, clearly embarrassed, sent a short message. Okay, I see now. She played all of us. But that was just the beginning. A few days later, an email from Sarah herself landed in my inbox. She complained that I had ruined everything and humiliated her in front of our friends. She accused me of overreacting, claiming her meeting with Ryan was just a coincidence. I deleted it without a reply. She was not done. A day later, Sarah posted a long, vague diatribe on her Instagram story about toxic partners and men who not handle it when a woman is independent and has her own life. But she made a critical mistake. I knew her digital footprint better than anyone. She always been reckless with what she posted. It did not take me long to dig up old posts where she bragged about manipulating situations, telling stories about handling exes with a winking emoji. I screenshotted everything, saving it for the next round. The final straw was my consultation with a lawyer. When I walked into the law office downtown, the air felt still and serious. My attorney, Mr. Reynolds, was a sharp, calm man in his 50s. Let's start with her attempts to discredit you at your workplace, he said, setting his glasses aside. Walk me through everything, from the moment you saw those fake screenshots. I laid it all out. The email to my boss, the false accusations, the drama with our friends. I also told him about her latest social media offensive, where she was trying to paint herself as the victim. And you have documentation of all of this? Reynolds asked. Everything. Photos, her real text messages with the other guy, her old social media posts. She got arrogant, posted things thinking no one would ever call her on it. A thin smile touched Reynolds' lips. This is a very strong foundation. I think we can put her on the defensive very quickly. He began drafting a cease and desist letter. It was formal, severe, and legally airtight. It listed every one of her actions, the defamatory statements to my employer, the falsification of evidence, and the ongoing harassment. It warned her that if her behavior continued, I would file a lawsuit for defamation and tortious interference with my professional career. The document was ready the next day. Reynolds insisted on having it delivered by a process server. It makes a stronger impression, he noted, signing the papers with a decisive flick of his pen. When the server confirmed delivery, I knew what was coming. Sarah was not the type to accept defeat gracefully. The first wave hit a couple of hours later. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered, and her voice, raw and frayed with panic, shot through the speaker. Are you serious, Alex? You hired a lawyer to come after me? This is ridiculous. She was practically screaming. I kept my voice even cold. All the details are in the letter, Sarah. If you have any questions, you can discuss them with my attorney. You want to ruin my life? You pathetic, Alex. Her voice broke into a sob. You the one ruining your life, Sarah. I'm just protecting mine, I said, and then I hit end call. She tried calling back a minute later, but I ignored it. A series of voicemails followed, each a chaotic blend of apology and accusation. Alex, I messed up. Okay? But you got it all wrong. I just wanted to get some closure with Ryan. It's not what you think. I love you. I did not listen to the end. Her apologies sounded as fake as her smile in Cancun. The next day, I decided to do a deeper dive into her digital history. Sarah had always been an oversharer, curating her life for an audience. She loved posting about her little wins, which sometimes read like confessions of her manipulative tactics. It did not take long to find a post from a few months back, a selfie with a caption that read, "Some guys are so clueless they'll believe any story you tell them. The secret is a killer smile and unwavering confidence." Winking face, that post, with its flirty, arrogant tone, was my next find. I also found a comment thread with her friends where she joked about men who see not tell a good story from the truth. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Mr. Reynolds. "This is a gold mine," he replied within minutes. She's dismantling her own credibility. I also noticed that her texts in our old mutual group chats were becoming more frantic. She was trying to do damage control, but my evidence was too concrete. "I saw the screenshots you sent. David, one of the friends who had initially called me out, texted me privately. Did she really think no one would find out? Man, I'm done with her." Laura, another friend, sent me a message. "She tried to convince me you were being a paranoid psycho. Now it all makes sense." I have no words for how low that is. The carefully constructed image she built for herself was beginning to crumble. It all came crashing down with a single post, simple but powerful enough to detonate her life. Ryan, the ex she dragged into this mess, suddenly dropped a bombshell on his own Facebook page. I do not normally do this, but I'm tired of the manipulation and the lies. I never thought I'd have to post something like this publicly, but the truth needs to come out. Meeting Sarah in Cancun was as much of a surprise to me as it was to everyone else. I had no idea she was in a relationship, and I damn well did not know she orchestrated the whole thing just to see me. "Sarah, you torched everything around you, and I want no part of it." The post spread like wildfire. Within an hour, it was flooded with comments. People who had been on her side were now openly questioning her. "Wait, you were seeing him behind Alex's back? Seriously? Is it true you set this whole thing up? If Ryan saying this, damn. That's messed up." Sarah tried to defend herself with a short, vague comment. "There's more to the story than Ryan is letting on. It's easy for people to judge when they do not know the details." But it was useless. The tide of disbelief had turned into a tsunami, and her words only drowned her further. Meanwhile, our mutual friends made their final exodus. Laura, one of her closest friends, posted a public comment directly under Ryan's post. "This is heartbreaking to read, but I not stand by Sarah anymore. If this is true, I'm just so disappointed." That comment was the final blow. Sarah tried calling Laura, texting her a storm of excuses and accusations that I had poisoned everyone against her. But her friend never responded. I watched her world implode from a distance. She started deleting posts, then set her profile to private, but that only fueled the gossip. One night, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. "Alex, it is Sarah. Please just talk to me. I know I made mistakes, but I do not deserve this. You could stop this. You could just let it go." I stared at the message, feeling nothing but a strange, hollow calm. A year ago, I might have answered. Now, her words were just empty noise. Her last-ditch effort was as futile as the rest. A few days later, her social media accounts vanished completely. People started asking where she'd gone. Laura, who had received one last, desperate call from Sarah, told me what happened. She moved back to her parents' place in another state, said she needed a fresh start. Sometimes I hear whispers that she was trying to build a new life, but her reputation had a long shadow. Even Ryan, who might have been her last hope, had cut all ties. I not be a part of that chaos. He'd written in a message to a friend, who then forwarded it to me. The silence in my apartment was no longer empty. It was peaceful. Sarah's betrayal was in the rearview mirror, a storm cloud that had finally passed. Whenever I thought about it, I felt a profound sense of relief, like a heavy weight I had not realized I was carrying had been lifted from my shoulders. Now I could finally look forward. My life, though scarred by her lies, was slowly returning to normal. I realized I had not just left her in Cancun. I left her in my past, right where she belonged. And that S where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.